Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we're talking about documentary filmmaker and left-wing activist Michael Moore. For those who don't know, Moore used to be a pretty big deal in the documentary community. Back in the day he had big hits with docs like Bowling for Columbine, which won him the Oscar. And then there was Fahrenheit 9/11, which came out in June 2004 and went on to become the highest grossing documentary of all time, ever. A title it still holds to this day. But the sequel to that, Fahrenheit 11/9, just came out recently and it's not doing as well to say the least. Michael Moore's new movie has turned out to be a big stinking flop, and the filmmaker is certainly fading away from relevance lately too, and he's even been breaking down a bit over President Trump. We're going to go over all this today and more, but first, let's look at a new video of Michael Moore himself that's been going around the web. This particular video is rather interesting because in it, Moore admits he thinks the Democrats are going to lose bigly in the upcoming midterm elections. That's right, and he even says Trump is the smartest president of all time. Not kidding. Liberal shill and Democrat supporter Michael Moore is complimenting our president Trump. This should be good. Let's go ahead and take a look.
I don't want to give you any false hope here. I'm the level of my optimism has gone down to quite a degree. I still have it. Obviously, I'm doing this. I'm making a movie. I'm going to have a TV series here in another month or so. I'm doing this because I believe there's a chance to make this right. But I'm not going to kid you either. Donald Trump outsmarted everybody.
You're goddamn right he did. Trump beat Hillary Clinton despite the world working against him. She had the Democrats cheating for her, the media lying about the polls, and every celebrity in Hollywood shilling for her too, and Hillary still lost. Or, more importantly, Donald J. Trump won. And believe it or not, Michael Moore actually predicted Trump would win back in the election season in 2016. Take a look at this other clip real quick.
It's your right. Trump's election is going to be the biggest fuck you ever recorded in human history. And it will feel good.
That was Moore predicting Trump's win before the election in October 2016, just weeks before he was proven right in November. And I gotta give the guy credit here too. Sure, he's one of the worst, most out of control Hollywood liberals ever, but Michael Moore does have some self-awareness to him too. Also, Michael Moore has a better, more honest read on the elections in America, and he knows who's gonna vote for who. He's not blinded by his bias, it seems, not completely, and he knows when and if he's going to lose. And that brings us back to today's video, where Michael goes on to say Democrats are going to lose the upcoming midterm elections too. Let's continue with that first video.
Sorry if that's a hard thing to hear, but he did. He outsmarted the smartest person ever to run for president. And
let me go ahead and stop you again there, Michael. You said Trump outsmarted the smartest person ever to run for president, which actually makes him the smartest person now. Just saying. Also, Hillary is not that smart. She didn't even campaign in 2 of the toss-up states. She had everything on her side and still lost. She's not the smartest. Hillary's probably the dumbest ever. She's a creepy, old, corrupt windbag who got nominated because of her husband, who used to be president. And screwing your way to the top doesn't make you smart. All that does is make Hillary an opportunistic hack with low morals and no principles.
you say to me, well, no, don't, you're giving him too much credit. Yeah, well, here's what I'm giving him. He's in the White House, as he says, and we're not. So he didn't get in there by being a complete dummy.
Well put, Michael. And it's good to see at least one Democrat facing this hard truth here. Too bad Michael Moore isn't popular or relevant anymore. Certainly not enough to make a difference. His party will just ignore this and still carry on like crazy people, pretending nothing is wrong with their Democratic Party. The Democrats are like that "this is fine" meme. Their whole party and base is burning down around them and they're ignoring it and pretending everything is awesome. It's not though. And Michael Moore is trying to tell them that. Moore is basically kind of saying, hey, listen here, there's something wrong with the Democrats, guys. We need to change tactics if we want to win again. But fortunately for us conservatives, the liberals won't listen and they'll never learn either.
You have to approach this election as if we're going to lose and they're going to win. And you know why they're going to win? Because they're smarter than we are. So if you're thinking that this is going to go great in November because, well, everybody's on to Trump now, I'm here to tell you tonight that there's a very good chance that they're going to continue to be in power.
I think you mean we're going to keep winning, just like Trump said we would. He wasn't kidding when he said we're going to win so much we'll get tired of it. The president was right about that. And I gotta be honest, I don't know if I could take much more winning myself. I'm kind of getting bored with it. Sometimes I actually will hop online and lose a video game on purpose, just so I remember what losing feels like. And other times I actually feel sick from all the winning, because we have to party and celebrate so much that I'm getting like 2 or 3 hangovers a week. I really can't take any more victory celebrations.
And You should wake up every day for the next, 60 days, and operate with the absolute belief that we're going to get our asses kicked.
And there you have it. Now, I think this will largely go unseen, but this is a dramatic wake-up call that Democrats do need right now, which is kind of funny because no one's listening and no one cares what Michael Moore has to say anymore. But the truth of the matter is, he is right about this. Democrats are saying there's some kind of blue wave coming, but it's all bogus. The whole blue wave thing is based entirely on historical precedent from what I see. You see, most of the time, the party in the White House loses the midterms. But there are many reasons for that pattern the left doesn't understand. And right now, there aren't any visible factors or indicators that would show that the history is going to repeat itself in this instance. And let's also not forget, we are in a unique time and have unique circumstances here. So, as much of a moron Michael Moore is, Michael Moron knows not to kid himself and think everyone's just going to magically switch to Democrats here. There's literally nothing to indicate such a shift is taking place in the country. The reality is, Democrats would be in a much better place had they just simply shut up and completely went silent for all of Trump's term. Then they could have swooped in with a candidate after he's done. But now, after all this libtard screeching and rioting and protesting, Democrats have done more harm to their movement than we ever did. They're the ones that yelled and screamed and went rabid and moved so far left that old school Democrats almost look conservative now. In comparison, the Democratic Party is imploding on itself. Make no mistake. But part of the problem for Democrats is, in general, they can't allow conservatives to run unchecked right now. Because if they do, people will see all the benefits of conservative policies. And they'll see how kick-ass America is with conservatives in power. And that's one major factor behind the left's motivation here. Their motivation to be loud and attack everything. If our policies are good, then in turn, Democratic policies are bad. So, especially after ranting against our policies, if the conservative policies continue to work well like how they are now, people will see that and they'll learn that Democrats were wrong all along, because that's true. And that's why the left simply can't remain quiet and bide their time right now. And that's also why they're destroying their whole party. But that's enough about the fall of the Democrats. Let's now turn back to talking about the breaking down of Michael Moore again, which in my opinion started many years ago. Around 2016 is when the other clip is from, the one where he predicted Trump would win, and I believe this was from his now defunct stage show. In 2016, Michael Moore did a live cross-country tour, talking tour, like a stand-up comedy thing. He would sit at his stupid desk and rant about politics every night. And aside from that juicy Trump quote we went over, the stage show was a big disaster for him, just like how his new movie was this year. So there's a lot to this. For more details on Michael Moore's decline, let's go ahead and take a look at an article from Breitbart called "The Era of Michael Moore is Over." Check this out. Moore had already won the Best Documentary Oscar for Bowling for Columbine, his 2002 anti-gun screed. Not satisfied with that, or the fact that he had just quadrupled a box office record for a political documentary, Moore demanded Fahrenheit 9/11 be considered for Best Picture Oscar. He refused to even submit Fahrenheit 9/11 for documentary consideration. Now, Hollywood is used to oversized egos, but this revolutionary attack on the Academy antagonized a lot of the people who make the movies. And in the end, Fahrenheit 9/11 was nominated for exactly nothing. In the 14 years since, Moore has been removed from the Academy's Board of Governors and exposed as a super wealthy hypocrite on too many occasions to count. He's also seen as political baggage. During the 2004 presidential campaign, Moore enjoyed a seat of honor at Democrat John Kerry's nominating convention. After the much-hated in Hollywood George W. Bush won re-election, this was seen as a big mistake on Kerry's part, and many blamed Moore and Fahrenheit 9/11 for inspiring a backlash, for animating more Bush than Kerry voters. And here we can see Michael Moore's fall started way back in 2004. His movie coming out and breaking records right before that election was a pretty big deal. Moore was on top of the world then, but George W. Bush still won re-election, despite all his attacks against him. Despite Moore basically attacking Bush in his whole documentary movie for an hour and a half, which also made a ton of money and everyone saw it, well, the people still voted for Bush anyway, probably in spite of that. And that must have been a big reality check for Michael Moore, and I would say that likely influenced his pessimism about the more recent elections. In other words, Moore doesn't have a lot of friends in Hollywood. It is called assholing your way out of business, and I will explain why this matters in a bit. Worse still, while Moore was losing friends and influencing no one, his box office clout went over a cliff. In 2007, Sicko made a very respectable $25 million. In 2009, though, Capitalism: A Love Story, which was supposed to capitalize on the 2008 economic crash, went down in flames, with just $14 million. This was not even the worst of it. A year earlier, in 2007, Moore released Captain Mike Across America, a love letter to himself that ended up releasing as a slacker uprising for free. The rumor was that no one would distribute it. Then, after disappearing for more than 6 years, Moore returned with Where to Invade Next in 2016, a disaster that grossed only $3.8 million. 8 months later, in the hopes of of capitalizing on the Trump phenomenon, Moore released Michael Moore in Trumpland, and it grossed only $149,000. So we can clearly see his box office numbers are tanking real bad lately. And it's also good to see that his Trump bashing isn't going over as well with the public. Bush bashing was easy back in the day, and it was big business for Moore too. But going after Trump is a hell of a lot trickier. It's almost impossible, in fact. And you know why? It's because Trump is the real deal, and he's squeaky clean. He's a true, bona fide, God-fearing American who wants nothing more than to run this country well, and to help Americans while he does it. So it's really hard to go after Trump in a compelling way. Plus, Michael Moore is getting old, and his shtick is getting old here too. So what's a fading 64-year-old Marxist to do? Sequel time, baby. Reaching back to the peak of his glory, that $222 million blockbuster, this year Michael Moore released Fahrenheit 11/9, his Trump trashing comeback to the big time. Glowing reviews, tons of free publicity from the complicit media, and a huge rollout at 1,700 theaters, and kersplat. Fahrenheit 11/9 will limp out of theaters lucky to gross $6.5 million. That is a catastrophe for Moore, a humiliating announcement that his influence is over. His time is past. No one cares what he has to say anymore. And with virtually no friends in Hollywood, who is going to give him that second chance? Especially after he proved incapable of capitalizing on his biggest hit. That's a good question. I highly doubt Michael Moore will get that second chance though. With his latest movie flopping and failing to capitalize on that sequel opportunity, well, I think it's safe to say Michael Moore's career is over. He has broken down. But let's not feel too bad for this old liberal though, because although he preaches Marxism and splashes in some socialism and communism too, well, Michael Moore sure is a capitalist privately. The guy owns like a dozen different properties across the country, and he's worth a whopping $50 million. Wouldn't it be great if Michael would share some of that wealth with all his friends and family and countrymen, like a true communist should? I thought that was the democratic socialist way, right? What do you guys think? Is Michael Moore breaking down? Do you think he will be right again about his prediction, saying that the right-wingers will win again in these midterm elections? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.